The scope of A.5.27 extends across the entire life cycle of incident management, beginning immediately after containment and recovery. Once systems stabilize, a structured review must take place to identify what went wrong, what worked well, and what must change. The purpose is not to assign blame, but to uncover the conditions that allowed the event to occur or escalate. Root cause analysis techniques, such as the 5 Whys or fishbone diagrams, help isolate systemic issues that go beyond the immediate symptom. The review should prioritize corrective and preventive actions, linking each lesson to a specific improvement plan or control adjustment. These outcomes must feed directly into the continual improvement processes outlined in Clause 10 of ISO IEC 27000, ensuring that each incident strengthens both local controls and the organization's overarching ISMS framework.
Structured post-incident review methods make these analyses repeatable and effective. Organizations should use standardized after-action review, ARR, to capture the sequence of events, key decisions, and timing. Cross-functional workshops bring together all stakeholders, technical teams, business owners, communication staff, and external partners to ensure that perspectives align. Timeline reconstruction helps visualize when detection occurred relative to compromise, revealing opportunities to reduce dwell time in future cases. Updates to the risk register document newly discovered threats or vulnerabilities, while changes to the statement of applicability record adjustments in control design or scope. This comprehensive approach ensures that findings become part of institutional memory rather than fading into forgotten postmortems once operations resume.
Capturing and disseminating knowledge effectively turns lessons into organizational capability. Post-incident findings should be distilled into playbooks, checklists, and quick reference guides for use by future responders. Awareness campaigns help staff recognize recurring threats, such as phishing tactics or misconfigurations, by translating lessons into practical guidance. Training materials, onboarding programs, and leadership briefings should be updated regularly to reflect these lessons, ensuring that experience compounds rather than resets with each turnover cycle. Where appropriate, sanitized insights can be shared with industry groups or information-sharing forums, contributing to sector-wide resilience. This act of transparent collaboration reinforces the idea that security is a collective responsibility, not a competitive advantage, and that shared learning benefits the entire ecosystem. Metrics transform learning from a qualitative ideal into a measurable outcome. Key performance indicators might include the percentage of incidents that undergo a completed review, the average time from incident closure to integration of lessons into policies or procedures, and the observed reduction in recurrence of similar issues. Another valuable indicator is the adoption rate of new or revised controls, how quickly lessons move from insight to implementation. These metrics demonstrate to management that lessons are not merely documented but operationalized. Tracking progress over time also reveals maturity trends, showing how the organization evolves from reactive recovery to proactive resilience, where incidents become rare, predictable, and better contained. Cultural maturity underpins all successful learning programs. A no-blame philosophy encourages open disclosure of mistakes and near misses, replacing fear with curiosity. Transparency fosters trust, signaling that leadership values honesty over perfection. Recognizing and rewarding proactive reporting or early detection reinforces desired behavior across teams. When executives publicly participate in post-incident reviews and model openness, they normalize continuous learning as a leadership value. This culture transforms incident analysis from an uncomfortable exercise into a shared pursuit of excellence, where everyone feels responsible for learning and improving, not just those in security or IT roles. Good practices for maintaining organizational memory ensure that incident data remains searchable, relatable, and actionable. A centralized knowledge base should store post-incident reports, tagged by system, control, or risk category. This tagging allows analysts to identify recurring issues and thematic patterns across incidents. Periodic meta-reviews, such as quarterly or annual trend analyses, can reveal systemic weaknesses, such as repeated misconfigurations or slow escalation chains. Summarized insights should reach senior management and the board, framing security not as a technical matter, but as a governance topic tied to business continuity and risk appetite. Maintaining this living memory transforms the ISMS into a learning system, one that improves continuously through real-world experience rather than static compliance audits.
For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Control A.5.28 ensures that evidence collected during an incident is reliable, admissible, and aligned with legal and regulatory requirements. While A.5.27 focuses on extracting lessons, A.5.28 safeguards the integrity of what those lessons are based on, the facts, data, and digital artifacts that reconstruct what actually occurred. The intent is to guarantee that investigations can stand up to scrutiny from auditors, courts, regulators, and partners alike. It requires a methodical, documented approach to evidence handling, ensuring that chain of custody begins at the first point of capture and continues unbroken through analysis and storage. By designing forensic readiness into systems and processes, organizations can respond to incidents confidently, knowing that every piece of collected data carries both technical credibility and legal defensibility. The evidence collection workflow begins with isolation, preserving the affected environment as soon as possible to prevent tampering or accidental modification. Systems suspected of compromise are quarantined logically or physically, and imaging tools are used to capture forensically sound copies of storage volumes, memory, and logs. These images must be verified with hash values to prove integrity. Data is then securely transferred to analysis repositories with access control and encryption enforced. Every step, who performed it, when, and how, is recorded in a handling log. This meticulous documentation transforms reactive firefighting into controlled, auditable investigation. Proper workflow discipline ensures that findings can later serve as defensible evidence for internal remediation, regulatory response, or legal proceedings. Evidence in the ISMS context takes many forms, each carrying different handling requirements. System and application logs provide chronological records of actions and are often the first source examined during investigation. Memory dumps, disk images, and configuration exports reveal volatile and persistent traces of compromise. Communication artifacts, emails, chat transcripts, or transaction records help establish intent, sequence, and accountability. Even non-digital evidence, such as physical access logs, visitor badges, or CCTV footage, can corroborate digital findings. Each evidence type must be preserved with awareness of its sensitivity, retention policy, and relevance. Comprehensive evidence collection creates a multidimensional picture of the incident, allowing investigators to connect technical events to human decisions and environmental context. Forensic readiness principles aim to make this process efficient, repeatable, and minimally disruptive. Systems should be designed from the start with reliable logging, synchronized timestamps, and tamper-resistant audit trails. Logs must be centralized, protected, and retained for a period consistent with business and regulatory needs. Access for forensic personnel should be pre-approved under controlled conditions, avoiding the delays that often cripple investigations. Where possible, automation should assist evidence capture triggering snapshots, exporting logs, and collecting metadata at the first detection of an incident. These design choices allow the organization to pivot from detection to investigation without improvisation, ensuring that evidence collection becomes an embedded feature of the operational environment rather than an afterthought. Legal and regulatory alignment is essential to the admissibility and ethics of evidence handling. Many jurisdictions impose strict requirements for how incident data, especially personal information, can be processed and transferred. Under frameworks like the GDPR, evidence that includes personal data must be protected, minimized, and retained only as long as necessary for lawful purposes. Sector-specific standards, such as those governing financial or healthcare systems, add further constraints on how forensic data is gathered and shared. Cross-border transfer restrictions may limit where evidence can be stored or analyzed, requiring cooperation with local authorities or cloud region controls. Privacy for both employees and customers must be respected throughout, ensuring investigations do not inadvertently create new compliance violations. Supplier and multi-party environments add another layer of complexity. Cloud and service providers often control the infrastructure where evidence resides, making access a matter of contract rather than capability. Agreements must include clauses that guarantee timely and secure access to logs, telemetry, and artifacts relevant to the organization's data. Where external forensic firms assist in investigations, contractual terms must define their roles, confidentiality obligations, and evidence handling standards. Joint investigations with partners should establish data exchange formats, encryption standards, and dispute resolution mechanisms in case information is withheld. By codifying these expectations ahead of time, organizations prevent confusion and delay when swift evidence retrieval is most critical.
Pitfalls in A.5.28 tend to emerge from neglect or inconsistency. Evidence can be lost simply because retention settings are too short or because systems overwrite old logs automatically. In other cases, undocumented handling breaks the chain of custody, rendering potentially critical data inadmissible. Some teams expose personal or confidential information inadvertently when exporting logs, creating privacy and compliance issues. Inconsistent tooling, where different teams use incompatible methods, leads to fragmented results and questionable integrity. Avoiding these failures requires a unified framework, periodic readiness testing, and clear ownership of forensic processes. A small investment in governance prevents enormous losses of trust and legal standing when incidents occur.
Assurance artifacts provide tangible proof that A.5.27 and A.5.28 are functioning as intended. Completed post-incident review reports link identified lessons to implemented corrective actions. Updated risk registers and SOA entries demonstrate integration into the ISMS. Chain of custody documents verify that evidence has been handled according to procedure, while audit trails confirm tool configuration and policy adherence. External or internal auditors can trace each artifact back to its originating incident, confirming that documentation aligns with practice. These artifacts form the narrative of continual improvement, showing not just that incidents were resolved, but that the organization learned, adapted, and strengthened as a result.
When combined, A.5.27 and A.5.28 deliver far more than procedural compliance. They establish institutional credibility. Organizations that can demonstrate both systematic learning and reliable evidence handling earn trust from regulators, partners, and customers alike. Every review, every preserved log, and every documented corrective action becomes a building block of resilience. Over time, this evidence-driven governance transforms the ISMS into a continuously self-improving organism, one capable of responding smarter, faster, and with greater confidence to whatever challenges arise. By closing the loop between response and readiness, these controls create a live-in archive of improvement and accountability, setting the stage for continuity-focused governance under A.5.29 and A.5.30, where organizational stability becomes both measurable and enduring.